Okay, so Paul, let's talk a little bit about like our experience with Youth Underground. So I have a couple questions, and then like let's just talk through those. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay. So first of all, why did we choose to work with Youth Underground?
Well, Youth Underground, we got to know through our school several years ago, and it really personally touched me a lot. What their kind of mission is and what they're trying to do, and the voices they're trying to give a stronger voice to. Um, and yeah, so when I heard about this opportunity to work with Youth Underground, doing something that I like, it really was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had Rasha come and speak to us at school like once I think when we were in year 10, and then she came in with the survivor of human trafficking in year 12. And I think that's where like I really felt like okay, I want to do something with them at some point. And then, we both of us took gap years and we were looking for internships and things to do, and the two of us are quite interested in arts and also human rights, so it just kind of worked really well. And I really appreciate Youth Underground for like letting us do what we like. I mean, I remember speaking with Rasha back in like September, and um, we were just thinking about how we can volunteer, and it just came about that art is what speaks to us, and so that's what we chose to do. um, yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about this, what are like some challenges that maybe we faced?
The obviously the stories that we've heard are very challenging to hear, but I think that's part of the whole journey that we've gone through as artists doing this is because um, these are stories that people don't want to hear in general. Like that's the whole thing that's difficult about telling stories like this, yet they're so important to hear.
Right.
So while doing the art and while kind of interviewing and trying to make sense of what we heard, um, I think that it was quite difficult to hear some of the things, to be honest. I mean, it was like crazy to think that, and it made me realize how lucky I am. For example, like my childhood looked completely different, but all of us are human, and they were deprived of things that it should not have been that way. And I think that was a hard part to kind of come to that realization that it could happen all around you and you don't know it.
That's so true. I mean, especially talking about Antares in particular, I mean, Antares and like us, we don't have that big of an age difference. So like I think he had his last suicide attempt in 2018, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018 was like I remember us being together at school and like doing all these things in 2018. So it kind of like, it kind of makes you realize as well that while you might be having like a super moment, somebody else might be having suicidal thoughts, right? So like it kind of like gives you a lot of perspective. And I was telling you the other day, Paul, that every time I see like a 2-year-old child now or like a young child, I think the first thought that comes into my mind is Antares now. It's just by
Yeah.
default. Because it's just I don't know. It still bothers me that a 2-year-old child can be abused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it should bother people because it's a very bizarre idea.
Definitely.
But this is the reality, right? This is Antares' story. And yeah, so I think I agree. That was probably the biggest challenge. And it was a journey for us too, because we had a lot of eye-opening moments.
Yeah.
Like Rayan's story, like her going into child prostitution in her like early teenage years is again, it's really hard to understand at times. But then you see these people, we talk to them, and then you realize that these things really do exist.
Well, to me, yeah, it has to do a lot with I guess the way to put how I've kind of seen the whole project, what I've kind of learned is about the difference in like I don't know a way to say it, but maybe like the goal that you have, or the thing, you know, we all want to live comfortable lives where we are happy and surrounded by good people. And the difference in like my childhood and childhood of Ryan and Antares is that it's about survival, and that's something a child, no human being should ever have to go through. And that, but as a child, it really just like, and as a young person, it's one of those things that like you should be able to trust people, and people who are older than you should be of comfort to you and should be providing a comfortable life. And their kind of life was about surviving. Rayanne had to, felt she had to, which she did have to kind of, I don't know what the words, I'm losing the words, but survive by herself because her parents were not supporting her in the way that she needed to be supported.
Absolutely. And actually, that brings me back. I mean, that brings up another point. I think in both of their stories, like Rian's and Antares' stories are very different, but there's like a lot of commonalities. So of course they're healing journeys. But again, like the role of parents, I think it's just, I think it's the main idea. It's kind of what led to everything that they went through. Um, and like you said, like parents are your main source of comfort, and they're meant to provide you, um, give you, protect you, and keep you safe. But then if you don't get that at such a young age, and for, you know, if they're the ones abusing you, in fact, then I mean, so I think parenting is another thing that like we really need to talk about.
Yeah.
It's actually like a huge responsibility. You're taking care of a human life, you know? Like you're responsible for them. And I think
Yeah.
it's not taken seriously a lot of
Not
times.
at all. Well, I think it also, this is a big thing that kind of was an eye-opening moment for me, is kind of realizing um, how important community is. Like, because I feel like if parents, especially when you're younger, like parents knowing each other and spending time with, like family spending time with each other and things, it just, the more you have a community, the less likely it would be that someone would be in such a bad situation where they didn't know they could reach out for help, or they didn't have a community that they felt like, okay, if I tell these people what's happening, I'm gonna have a way out. And I think it's a big statement on kind of community, how the importance of community and knowing each other, parents knowing each other and learning from each other. And yeah.
That's so true. I mean, going back to Rayanne's story, like when she was looking for help, um, and like, you know, she didn't have anywhere to go, and she ended up with a bunch of friends, and then, you know, and then she ran into pimps, and she had her whole trafficking journey. If at that point she had like a community that she felt like comfortable around, and that she felt close to, people that she could like go up to, people other than family that she could just go up to and like talk to, or there was a support system,
Yeah.
um then like, you know, maybe this thing could have been prevented. But I think that's such a good point, the part about you having a community that you feel connected to.
Yeah. And I think it's the responsibility of the parent, like to provide that for their child,
Yeah.
you know, provide that sort of, that sense of community, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Um, so why art? Why did we choose to do art?
Art is something for, I know for both of us has been a part of our lives for forever. And I feel art is a way to, that is accessible to people in a way that some other forms of information may not be. Like, I think people, like, for example, specifically with Youth Underground, part of the issue that's, the awareness is being raised for, is the fact that people are afraid to hear things and don't want to hear things and want things kind of sugar coated. You know, we don't want to hear details. We don't want to hear I think art is a way to really kind of force kind of this, you know, idea that it's so important to know these stories and hear these stories in a way that people like art, something people look at. I mean, you know, people, even if they don't understand the art, if the message doesn't go through, the art has an impression on people,
Yeah.
whether, you know, unintentionally. So I think art is a way of accessibility to people, to tell difficult stories and teach about the world. So I think that's for this specific issue of human trafficking. Um, art, I think, is an excellent way, and it just so happened that that's a gift we both and passion we both share. So that's why art was kind of the way we wanted to be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just adding to that, it's just a very like approachable sort of a means to convey, I think, stories like these that can be difficult for people to, to read or like to watch videos about at times. So maybe like on a Thursday evening when it's nice weather, they can just come and like come to an art gallery and see some artwork. Um, I think it could be a nice way to like
Yeah.
start a conversation, and you get a different crowd as well. So as I think on their social media, it's mainly youth, but I know like the people that we know are coming to the exhibition. We have all kinds of people, right? We have people that are from so many different generations and like from all kinds of backgrounds. Um, and I think it would just attract a different audience. And that's what we need. We need to talk about human trafficking with everybody, right?
Yeah, definitely.